Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight, as I mentioned in the announcement that I put out this weekend, we're going to go over the accounting cycle problem, and we're going to go over what to expect on your first Unit 1 test. Before I get into that, a couple housekeeping things. First, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here because y'all are paying enough attention to my announcements to attend tonight. But it's worth mentioning anyway for those that hopefully will tune in to the recorded session that I'm finding a lot of folks aren't reading the announcements, and I'm getting questions asked about things I'm updating you on, and it's like this is the first time you've come in contact with it. An example of that is the Chapter 3 Smart Book. So please take special note. I try to check the box so you'll get an email too. Sometimes I'll forget, and by then it's too late. But the announcement's going to come up every time you enter that you log into Blackboard. So please don't ignore them. Read them. Chapter 3 Smart Book has a problem. It links to Chapter 2. We've tried to get McGraw-Hill to fix this without success. So the department head made the decision to just give everybody 100 for Chapter 3 Smart Book and put everybody on the honor system that they will read the chapter. Okay. For WO2, and this is being recorded through WO1. For the internet class WO2, you have a problem with linking to the Chapter 3 homework. And well, this goes for really all three of my classes to pay attention to this, because it just happened again tonight. I was, pulling up the Unit 1 test in WO1, and lo and behold, it was not deployed to Blackboard. So there was no linkage. Now I fixed it before we started tonight, but it could go out again. These outages are just happening at random. We have also, well, that's what happened with the homework, and it could happen with the test between now and test day, and I might not see it until I hear from a student that says they can't, get in or whatever. So here's your solution, and I did an announcement on this. If you go to click on a link and you get an error message when you're in Blackboard that will not connect to McGraw-Hill Connect, and I can't remember exactly what the language is, but it's something to the extent is the page is unavailable or something like that. You all have an account with McGraw-Hill Connect when you went and purchased the book. You had to sign in and set up an account in order for Blackboard to properly link you to McGraw-Hill. If you, for some reason, cannot find your password and username that you set up your account with, then I have a number for McGraw-Hill Connect in one of the announcements. I put it up the second week, I think, of class. So if anybody had a problem purchasing the textbook, they know how to contact Connect, because they could do it through McGraw-Hill or sign up for the free trial. But I also have it in an announcement with explaining what the problem is and that it's not linked and you have to log in directly to McGraw-Hill Connect. Now, what we're going to do is the day after the due date, which would be, I believe, Monday, because I think the due date is next Sunday. I'm going to go in and have to manually update the grades from McGraw-Hill, because when that linkage is broken, your grades don't automatically transfer over to the grade book. So that's basically what's going on with these broken links, and that's only a small piece of the problems we're having with this new Blackboard Ultra. And so please bear with us. We'll at least give you a workaround like we did with the Unit 3 homework. Okay. I put in the announcement that one of the best ways to prepare for the final exam is to start on the accounting cycle problem. So I'm going to take you there next. Let's see. I get this drop down board every time I try to. There we go. Maybe I can get up to it now. Okay. The accounting cycle problem is 10% of your grade. It's an easy 100 because there's unlimited attempts. Unless you wait until the last day and start the thing at 8 o'clock at night, there's no way you're going to get it done. And I always suggest my classes get started on this after chapter 2, because you have enough knowledge to do some of this after chapter 2. By the end of chapter 3, you can do this completely. Okay. So what I'm going to do is walk you through how this is set up so you know, so that you can navigate it easier, I hope. And so if you look at what we're looking at on the screen now, and please unmute yourselves and let me know if you're not seeing what I'm describing, okay? The problem starts off at the top with a list of transactions. These transactions have to be put into a general ledger. And if I scroll down, you'll see under requirement 1 and 2, how they're posted to the general, I'm sorry, I said ledger, I meant to say journal, to the general journal, okay? So you're going to post all those transactions. By the way, do this in order. Don't jump around, please, because half the questions, and I do encourage you to reach out to me if you have a problem, but half the questions I get, it's because they don't finish one section before moving on to the other. So do all your journal transactions first. Make sure that after you put them in, debits equal credits. Okay, so you don't have that issue going on. And then you can move on to requirement number 3. Requirement number 3, you have to put together an unadjusted trial balance. This is really fairly easy. You can use an example in your book to make sure that the order of your accounts is correct. It actually, taking a rough look at this, they're putting them in order for you. You know, so you just have to know after you put these accounts in down here in the unadjusted trial balance, where to put the account balances. Okay. And you're not, by the way, you're not going to get the account balances until you finish your journal entries. Okay. Now we used to have under requirement 2, the T accounts. They moved them. So under requirement, they're down here, requirement 6A, I think. No, let me go back. Yeah, so your T accounts are under requirement 6B GL. GL stands for general ledger. So after you get done one, you will go and post them all to the T accounts here. And again, this is where students get it wrong. I've gone in and they can't figure out why they can't get any of their balance sheets in this problem to work. And then I'll go in and there'll be nothing in 3 or 4 of these bottom accounts, as if they didn't scroll down to finish. I don't know. I don't know what threw them off. So make sure that you have everything transferred over from requirement 1, doing one transaction at a time. Give you a hint. I advise students when they're doing the accounting cycle problem, if you're fortunate enough to have a laptop and a desktop, you know, work off work off of one and use the other for an extra screen for reference, so that you're not flipping back and forth constantly. You can have, say, the general journal screen pulled up in your laptop, and you can actually put the data in your desktop. You can do the same thing with a tablet too. Use a tablet as your laptop. So just a helpful hint there. And then, so when you get done posting all these to the general ledger, then you'll have your, you know, ending balances to put into the different required columns. Now, let me point out something to you. On this screen I'm showing you with the T accounts, these also include your adjusted entries. So this isn't what it's going to look like when you get done. This is what it's going to look like, less April 30th, where you have your adjusted entries. Okay. But it's not going to be as full, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, when you start to put together your unadjusted trial balance. All right, then requirement 4 is your adjusting entries. Your adjusting entries is this third section right here. Okay. And so you know, after you get done chapter 3, you'll know how to do your adjusting entries and how to put them in. A couple hints on this. The word expired means used up. It's pretty much telling you what your adjusting entry is going to be. You need to know how to calculate your adjusting entry for supplies. $600 of office supplies being available tells you that's your ending inventory. So if you take your beginning balance and add your purchases on the T account, this is what your ending balance should be for supplies, and your adjusting entries, the difference. This month's depreciation, it tells you what, for the computer equipment, what it is, so you don't have to calculate it. Let's see, employees earned $560 of unpaid and unrecorded salaries. That's telling you what your salaries payable account's going to be. Pretty much giving you a lot of this stuff without you having to do a lot of calculations. It's easier for you than in the past, because it looks like they've taken out some of the computations that you've had to make in the past when doing this problem. Company earned $2,050 in commission. It's not yet recorded, and so that's going to be your closing entry on that. So that's basic. And then you just go through, after you post your adjusting entries over to the T accounts, then you're going to go back and you're going to do your adjusted trial balance. 5B is now you're going to do your income statement. Then you're going to do your statement of retained earnings, because we know that we have to do the income statement first, because we got to know what our net profit is in order to complete this statement of retained earnings. That's why 5B is your income statement. And then we're going to need to know what our final balance of retained earnings is down here before we can do the balance sheet. Okay. Again, this is an excellent way to practice to make sure that you're ready for the test, your Unit 1 test. Okay. So let me pause for a minute. Let me see if anybody has any questions. I have everybody on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, I don't see anybody unmuting themselves. So I'm going to go on, and now I'm going to discuss the Unit 1 test. First, let me point out that, and let me see, I might have it up. No, I don't. Let's see. All right, so if I go, well, I have to go further down. So I have opened up Module 3 in Blackboard, Chapter 3 in Unit 1 test, and you will see that the test itself is all the way at the bottom. Okay, and that should link you over to it. Now in Module 1, Unit 1, you can see up here at the very first thing you can link to is the Unit 1 study guide. And by clicking on that, it gives you a lot of good information that you would want to use to review, especially if you're having difficulty understanding some of the relationships between the different accounts. Okay. There's a summary of chapter 1, 2, and 3. Let's see. I want to point something out here. If we look at the bottom of page 2, it says Unit 1 test contains 18 questions similar to the ones you saw in the homework, the practice, and the quizzes. Have a paper and pencil out, because I'm going to give you some places to go that you can refer to prepare for some of the questions you're going to see on the test. And then finally, the final one is, this is really a good diagram that's showing you how all of the different information flows. If you look at this and go upwards, it'll give you a good idea of how the information flows on the different financial statements. Okay. So let me get rid of this. We're going to go, well, before I get into the different things that are going to be on your test, let me give you some ways to prepare for the test. First of all, set yourself up for success. You got 2 hours to take this test. That's about, let me see. It's a little over 10 minutes per question. No, I got that wrong. I think it's about 5 minutes per question. You have 2 hours to take it. You have 17 questions. So do the math. Understand how much time you should be spending on each question. Obviously, if you spend 2 minutes on a question and you feel really good about the answer, it's going to give you additional time for the longer questions on the test. I suggest that you make sure you have a good internet connection. I have had students try to take it on their cell phones. Don't even try it, okay? If you've been able to do your homework on your tablets, I would say you'll be okay. But I strongly suggest if you don't have a laptop or a computer, that you go to the college, go to the computer center at the college, which has really outstanding hours that they're open, and take it there. Because first of all, you're going to have an excellent internet connection, okay? You're going to have relative quiet there. I tell my students in my face-to-face class, make sure you lock up your animals, lock up your kids, and take away all distractions. Now, locking up the kids is a little extreme, but I don't expect you to do that, but I do expect you to have somebody watch them so that there's no distractions and so that that doesn't cut into your time. If in fact you get knocked off the test or it freezes on you, all right, what I would suggest you do is email me right away and send me a text message, because chances are I might have my phone on me like over the weekend, if you're taking it over the weekend, and I can run in the house and get on the computer and see what's going on. I can go in and I can access where you're at with the test. You know, if you're going to email me and tell me you got knocked off with 5 minutes left to go, a little suspicious there. All right. But if you got through it for an hour and I can go in and see you've only done half the questions, I can go in and I can reset it so that you can finish the test. So don't panic if disaster strikes, so to speak. I meant to mention dial-up. I don't even know if we still have dial-up internet anywhere in the upstate, but about 3 years ago, I had a student who lived in Pickens County, said that's all they had was dial-up, because they messed up big time on their first test, and I went ahead and reopened it for her so she could take it at the library. But if you do have dial-up, don't try to take it on dial-up. Follow my advice for if you don't have a computer, get to, you know, a place where you can take it with a solid internet connection. Now, I'm going to show you something that because your internet sections, you probably aren't aware of this. My face-to-face classes are, because we do problems in class, and when we do the problems in class, I give them a choice. I tell them they can do their homework or they can do the practice problems I'm reviewing. The reason being is they're identical. They're not in identical order because the homework mixes them up, but the problems you're going to see are identical. So like when I'm on, say, problem number 2 in the practice problem, I'll show you something here. I direct the class that's working on their homework to look at this line right here and look for QS 1-15, because in the homework, it may be problem number 12. Okay. But it's the identical problem. The only difference is the numbers are going to be different because they change the data between the practice. So you might see service revenues 14,000, wage expense 6,000, that kind of thing. So the problem itself is laid out identical, but the data used is going to be different. And that's so when I talk to you tonight and I refer to the problem number, I'm not going to be referring to this number up here. I'm going to be referring to this number up here, which correlates with the problems in the back of each chapter. This is quick study 1-15, right out of your textbook. The only difference is it's set up in McGraw-Hill so that you can complete it in McGraw-Hill instead of on a piece of paper. So the first part I want to go over is T accounts. And so I'm going to go over to practice problem. Let's see, it's 2-7. So bear with me as I scroll over to 2-7. Okay, so this is an example of what you'll see on the test for, computing T accounts balances. All right. By the way, some of the quiz, there are 3 or 4 multiple choice on the test. So what I'm going to tell you what they're about, but I'm not going to pull them up for you. Now here's the next section after T accounts is ratios. So go through your each chapter, the first 3 chapters, you have financial ratios at the end of each chapter. Sometimes there's just 1, sometimes there's 2. All right. So make sure you go back through and know all of your ratios. I suggest maybe write them down on a piece of paper and make sure you understand what they are. Let me see if I can find one here. And these are going to be taken right out of your homework or right out of your quiz questions. So you've seen these before. That's why I push the students to get 100 on your homework, because if you keep pushing till you get 100, you've mastered the material. Okay. Here we go. Computing using the debt ratio. So you have to know how to calculate the debt ratio and to get to the proper percentage. And if it's a quiz question, it may ask you to analyze it. Okay. And as essentially like compare the 2 companies. All right. And let me see, we're in chapter 2. Okay. You're going to have 3 questions. They're going to deal with the income statement, statement of retained earnings, and balance sheets. So I'm going to go back to chapter 1. And if you look at quick study 1-15 in your practice problems, and that's practice problem number 7, you've got your income statement, then you have your statement of retained earnings, and then you have your balance sheet. And in the way you can see, you're given all the information you're going to need for your balance sheet. In fact, it is laid out in order for you. Okay. And we should know by now that order of accounts is important when you're doing the balance sheet, and it's important when you're doing the income statement. So make sure they're making it a no-brainer for you. We're going to get into, in later chapters, they're going to mix these accounts up and you got to know how to put them in the right order. But for right now, they're really making it easy for you. So that's QS. Again, this is in the practice problems. If you need to go back and make sure you know the information, QS 1-15 to 1-17. Next, they're going to cover financial statements. Now, I've got some here. Again, you can look them up in your practice problems. QS 2-2, QS 1-14, and know your chart of accounts, which I don't have a reference to, but there is an excellent exhibit in your chapter 2 that shows you what a chart of accounts looks like. So just know where it's located at. Okay. All right. Next is chapter 2 and what normal balances are. Okay. Let me go back to chapter 2. And it starts with QS 2-5. By the way, if I give you like 2-4 and what to study for, and you go in and you can't find it for some reason, open up your textbook, find 2-5, and look at the problem before and after it. And those are more than likely in your homework or practice problems. So if you need to come up to speed on normal balances, refer to 2-5, which I think is next. Yep. All right. So know how to compute that. And 2-6, know how to compute that. And 2-7, which is T accounts. All right. Because you're going to need to know how to post your T accounts by understanding what your normal balances are. I also have a reference here to 2-19. So you might want to take a look at, I don't know where that's going to fall in here, and I don't want to take up your time looking for it. So just take a look in your practice problems at 2-19. This is why, by the way, you have unlimited attempts on practice problems and homework, so that you can, and homework, you do have a closing date, but you have no closing date until the day before the final exam for practice problems. So you can always go back and work practice problems, not just now for preparation for your test, but you can go back in preparation for the final exam as well. Final, let's see, no, not final. You have closing entries, all right? And closing entries are in chapter 3. And you want to refer to 3-20, so I have to go backward here. Nope, 3-20 is not coming up. So you'll have to go to your textbook. Wait a minute, maybe this is a two-parter. Let me check for that. No. Okay. Let's see if it's 3-22 I have as a reference to this too. Yeah, there's 3-22. So you'll have, what this is kind of a, well, it's not really a comprehensive problem. This is what you're doing is you're given the adjusted trial balance. Okay. And then you have to prepare the closing entries from that. You can see that it's just a matter of posting the debits and credits and closing out the accounts to the income summary, then moving the stuff over to retained earnings, and then closing out the dividend account. But I would also refer to problem number 3-20. It's in your textbook. See if you can find something similar in one of the practice problems or homework. I'm sure you can, because again, like I said, what's going to be on the test is going to be very similar to what you're looking at here. The only thing that's going to be different are the numbers are going to be changed. Next, you're going to have a problem on carrying over a 24-month insurance policy. I showed you this in chapter 2. Go back and look at chapter 2's video where I talk about it should be close to the beginning because it's one of the first examples in doing adjusting entries. If I might have that wrong, might be chapter 3. Yeah, I think it is chapter 3, but it's at the beginning of the PowerPoint. So if you go back into my video, you can watch how you determine. And I'll tell you what students run into here with this is it'll have a 24-month policy. It'll say it was taken out on October 1st, and the students calculate the number of months incorrectly. So please pay attention to that and make sure the number of months is correctly calculated for that first year, because that's going to be your adjusted entry. So if it's taken out on October 1st, you have to divide the amount of the insurance policy, the 2-year policy, by 24 months, and then multiply it times 3, which are the last 3 months of the year, which is going to be your adjusted entry. You're also going to have a similar example for rent. So you'll have a 1-year lease, say, that's paid in advance. It might be more than that. I haven't read the problem, but I know it's essentially going to be a rent problem. It's there every year. And again, what the students will get wrong is they will miscalculate the number of months. It'll say that the policy was paid on September 1st. And for some reason, they'll calculate 3 months rent instead of 4 months rent as the adjusted entry. So just be careful of that. And I have a note here, and I'm not sure what it relates to. So I'm going to ignore that. Yeah, I don't want to throw you off in that. That essentially, this is going to be most of the questions. I'm not going to go in and go over examples of all the ratios. You can go back through the practice problems and see what problems are ratios. Read them, make sure you understand them. Make sure that you ignore the extra information that's in there. There's generally, in both your quiz and your homework, when they lay out a problem for a ratio, they're going to give you something in there you don't need. Beware also that if it says average, let's say average total assets, that means you take your beginning and ending and divide by 2. I think almost always they're going to tell you what that is so that you don't have to do that division. But just be careful. Read your questions carefully. And last but not least, my final advice is if you're reading something that has 2 to 4 sentences in it explaining the problem, read the last sentence first, because the last sentence is telling you what you're going to be answering. And then you can go back and read the other sentences in the beginning to see what data you're going to need. Again, just saves you from putting information in that's not relevant to what you're being tested on. Okay, I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions. If you do, go ahead and take yourself off mute. Okay, I see someone's taking themselves off mute. You have a question? All right. Going once, going twice. This is your last chance to ask any questions you might have about the test. Okay, Alec, I want to do a sound test to make sure that my sound is coming through okay. Can you take yourself off mute? And in fact, I'll take you off. Well, it's not letting me take you off mute. Can you tell me if the sound's coming through okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Okay. I want to make sure that everybody heard my request for questions because I'm not getting any, and you usually do when I'm going over what to expect on the test. All right. If nobody has any questions, thank you for attending. And this video will be posted in case you need to refer back to it sometime tomorrow. Thanks for attending.